After slot 00 appeared, every system inside Mingde Hospital began showing abnormalities at the same time. It was not a large-scale shutdown. It was more like a subtle shift. In the emergency triage system, the tags on several divine domain-related patients were automatically changed to psychological stability procedure recommended. In the adolescent psychosomatic department's course backend, a prompt reappeared. White Tower substitute support available. In the medical assistance system, the qualification status of some people who had withdrawn became supplemental stability confirmation required. In the sleep center system, the calming audio track was marked recommended for use. Even inside the nurse's station work reminders, several strange prompts appeared. If a patient repeatedly expresses withdrawal, guide the patient to complete a stability assessment. If family members hesitate, remind them that follow-up referral may be affected. These prompts were not enough to kill anyone immediately. But they were pushing the hospital's workflow toward the White Tower and Anxu. Bit by bit. No coercion. No command. Only suggestions. And inside a hospital, suggestions were often accepted quickly by busy people. Because everyone was too busy. Nurses needed to make quick judgments. Doctors needed to issue orders quickly. Family members needed to sign documents quickly. Patients needed to be routed quickly. Luo Wens had chosen a hospital precisely because he was using that speed. Lin Yao stood on basement level 2, listening to reports from every department, and his expression grew heavier. Slot 00 was not a person lying on a bed. At least not on the surface. It had already connected into the main system. Shen Jibai directly connected to the information office. Which service is slot 00 in? The information office was clearly in chaos too. We cannot find slot 00 in plain text. But there is a core authorization proxy service repeatedly overwriting recommendation fields. Its name is. The information office paused. MED Stable Core. Medical Stability Core. Shen Jibai gave a cold laugh. Who built it? Delivered by a partner. Jointly maintained by White Tower Psychological Support and Anxu Data. Shen Shu asked, can it be stopped? The information office answered, if it is stopped directly, it may affect some psychological support, assistance referrals, and sleep center scheduling. Shen Jibai snapped, I asked whether it can be stopped. I did not ask what it will affect. The information office answered weakly, hospital-level authorization is required. Shen Jibai cursed. The director is not here. The nursing supervisor said, the administrative vice director on duty is inside the hospital. Chen Shu immediately sent people to find him. But Lin Yao asked, if it is stopped directly, will it create medical danger? The information office checked for several seconds. It will not affect emergency life-saving equipment. It will not affect medication orders. It will not affect laboratory or imaging systems. It mainly affects psychological support and assistance referrals. Shen Jibai immediately said, then stop it. The information office said urgently, we do not have authorization. This was the choke point of real-world institutions. They knew there was a problem. They knew stopping it would not affect life-saving equipment. But they did not have the authority to stop it. Authorization itself had become Luo Wens's shield. Lin Yao looked at MED Stable Core on the underground screen. Slot 00 may not be a patient. Yi Jiwei asked, then what is it? An authorization proxy, Lin Yao said. The White Tower and Anxu need a core proxy that can complete stability confirmation for different systems. Inside the system, it plays the position of a stability already confirmed. That is why it is the core correction slot. Xinhuan asked through the communication channel, meaning they use one system proxy to say for everyone in advance that stability procedures are reasonable? Yes, Lin Yao said. But I suspect there are still people behind it. Because the slot system has always used people to carry gaps in procedures. Slot 00 cannot be entirely programmatic. Songji listened remotely and suddenly said, "There are threads." His voice was very weak. Slot 00 is not one person. And it is not a system with no people in it. It feels like many people's consent has been compressed into one core. Lin Yao's eyes moved slightly. Many people's consent. Family supplemental consent. White Tower assessment consent. Anxu medical assistance consent. The dead whitelist. Correction slot documents. These forms of consent had been compressed into the authorization foundation of MED stable core. So slot 00 was an integrated consent core. Not a single person. It was a collection of misused consent. Luo Wentz had taken many tiny, vague, folded, threatened, substitute signed, death obscured, correction slot carried forms of consent and melted them into one core proxy. Then he let that proxy provide stability recommendations for the hospital system. At that moment, Lin Yao finally understood the Mingde Hospital node. Slot 00 was not trying to consent for one specific person. It was trying to provide a seemingly legal consent base for every high-risk psychological support process inside the hospital. That was even more frightening than Slot 17. Lin Yao quickly stated his judgment. After Chen Shu heard it, he immediately asked, "How do we dismantle it?" Lin Yao looked at all the rules they had already established. Unclear intention may not be treated as consent. Withdrawing White Tower clauses does not affect necessary medical care. Majority family consent may not replace individual risk disclosure. The dead may not serve as consent samples. Living people may not be turned into benchmarks. A human being may not become another person's consent field. Now, all of those rules had to converge on one point. Consent may not be fused. Each person's consent could only belong to that person, at that moment, for that specific matter. It could not be removed, merged, repurposed, and turned into authorization material for a system core. Lin Yao wrote on the whiteboard on basement level 2. Consent may not be fused. Folded consent, substitute consent, group consent, deceased data, and correction slot confirmation may not be merged into core authorization. Each consent must correspond to a specific person, specific matter, specific risk, and withdrawable scope. Consent whose source cannot be traced may not serve as the basis for a medical stability core. The metal box erupted with a stronger gray-white light than before. It was not battle light. It was more like the light of a contract being opened and separated again. MED stable core began flickering on the basement level 2 screen. Core authorization foundation questioned. Consent source verification initiated. Error, multiple consent items cannot be traced. Error, deceased data participating in authorization. Error, group consent converted into individual procedure. Error, correction slot carrier not disclosed. Yi Jiwei stared at the screen in shock. It is self-checking the consent sources. Lin Yao said, because it legalizes itself through consent. As long as it cannot use wrong consent as its core, it becomes unstable. MED stable core kept reporting errors. The White Tower recommendation prompts across the hospital began to disappear. Emergency triage tags returned to normal. The psychosomatic department course backend no longer recommended White Tower substitute support. The sleep center calming audio track changed from recommended for use to pending review. In the medical assistance system, the qualification status of people who had withdrawn changed from supplemental stability confirmation required to manual review required. Shen Jibai watched the reports and, for the first time, showed a trace of genuine surprise. "Did you talk it to death?" Lin Yao said, "Not to death. I made it unable to pretend it had enough consent." Just as MED stable core was about to stall, the system suddenly displayed one last prompt. "Transfer into emergency medical stability mode?" This mode may activate to protect life when consent is incomplete. Everyone's expression changed. This was the most difficult point. Emergency exceptions did truly exist in medicine. When someone was unconscious, in psychiatric emergency, at risk of self-harm or harm to others, or facing immediate danger to life, medicine could proceed first even when consent was incomplete. Luo Wentz had placed slot 00's final escape route here. If Lin Yao denied emergency medical stability mode, he would be standing against medical ethics. If he recognized it, MED stable core might borrow emergency mode to restart. Shen Jibai looked at Lin Yao. "This one cannot be cut in one stroke." Lin Yao nodded. "I know." He added the final line on the whiteboard. Emergency medical exceptions are limited to life-saving and preventing immediate harm. They may not be extended to correction, White Tower stability, qualification assessment, withdrawal suppression, or psychological alignment. Activation must be done by the on-site responsible medical professional and may not be automatically activated by an outsourced system. Afterward, the event must be recorded, reviewed, and disclosed. After Shen Jibai read it, he immediately said, "As the on-site responsible medical professional for Mingde Emergency Medicine, I confirm this. Emergency medical exceptions do not authorize White Tower or Anxu outsourced systems to act automatically. If there is danger to life, the on-site physician determines it." That sentence was like a real key. MED Stablecore's final emergency mode application was rejected. Red text appeared on the system. Insufficient core authorization. Slot 00 downgraded. Medical Stability Core has stopped external recommendation output. The entire basement level 2 went quiet. The abnormal prompts across the hospital disappeared. Slot 00 had been dismantled. Or rather, it had been downgraded into an outsourced service that no longer had authorization. Not a hospital core. Not medical authority. Not a proxy that could consent for everyone. Lin Yao exhaled. But a system prompt surfaced immediately after. Mingde Hospital node main core stopped. Slot 00 downgraded successfully. New rule, consent may not be fused. New medical boundary, emergency medical exceptions may not be outsourced. Warning, Luo Wentz has obtained a complete medical rule confrontation sample. Lin Yao looked at the final sentence, and his gaze sank. Luo Wentz had lost the Mingde node this time. But he had obtained something extremely valuable. How Obsidian's rules coexisted with real medical authority in a medical scenario. In the future, that would be both protection and a weakness that had been studied. Before the underground screen went dark, one last sentence appeared. Next time, not in a hospital. In the government system. Before anyone could react, the screen went out completely. Lin Yao stood on basement level 2 in silence for a long time. The government system. If a hospital was the crossing point of consent, life-saving, and stability, then the government system was the core of identity, qualification, household registration, disappearance, death, assistance, and legality. Luo Wentz's next step would be larger and harder to dismantle. After the Mingde Hospital node was stopped, the truly difficult work began. The 3 slot carriers from basement level 2 were transferred out. The middle-aged woman from slot 13 was sent into emergency observation. Shen Jibai personally wrote the medical orders and marked them clearly. Do not use White Tower stability procedures. Do not play Anxu or White Tower related audio. Do not require the patient to repeat death qualification phrases. Medical sedation is limited to bodily rest and safety necessity. The young man from slot 09 was still repeatedly saying that he could replace others. Lin Yao gave him the temporary name, not substitute. Not because the man could not choose for himself, but as a transitional protective prompt. Before he became fully conscious, the bedside card read, "Suggested temporary name, not substitute. You may choose not to bear pain for anyone." After he woke clearly, he would decide for himself whether to accept or change it. The boy from slot 21 was in the most dangerous condition. He had not yet been activated, but the white tower patch had already begun marking him as a carrier for a group consent gap. Xin Wan and Yi Jiwei helped disconnect the patch's external transmission. Shen Jibai arranged a new assessment by the Adolescent Psychosomatic Department. But this time, Lin Chong'an himself would be responsible, and Lu Qingxin would supervise remotely. Lin Chong'an looked exhausted. He looked at the boy from slot 21 and said quietly, "I thought the White Tower was helping us make up for manpower." Shen Jibai said coldly, "In the end, it was using people to patch processes." Lin Chong'an did not argue. After tonight, he could no longer push responsibility away with the words partner process. Because those processes had nearly turned his students, patients, and families into part of the White Tower. Lin Yao organized the preliminary Mingde incident report in the emergency conference room. This report was more complicated than the decommissioned mall. The decommissioned mall had been a real-world military order point. Mingde Hospital was a multi-layer outsourced node. It involved emergency medicine, adolescent psychosomatic medicine, the sleep center, medical assistance, White Tower psychological support, Anxu data, slot correction slots, family supplemental consent, and the medical stability core. None of those lines could be mixed. He divided the report into 8 sections. First, Su Ruoqing's emergency relay. Second, replacement of the sleep stability group audio track. Third, the family supplemental consent withdrawal window. Fourth, the fake Lin Jian and slot 17. Fifth, the slot observation group in the underground nuclear medicine area. Sixth, MED stable core and slot 00. Seventh, the boundary of emergency medical exceptions. Eighth, follow-up preservation and accountability. After Shen Jibai finished reading, he said only one thing. Add 1 section. Lin Yao asked, "What?" Hospital process responsibility, Shen Jibai said. The White Tower and Anxu have problems, but Mingde allowed them to connect in. Mingde is responsible too. We cannot push everything onto outsourcing. Lin Yao nodded. That sentence mattered. The reason Luo Wens could always use outsourcing was that many institutions were willing to hand troublesome processes away. Psychological support lacked manpower, so they handed it to the White Tower. Assistance qualification review was complicated, so they handed it to Anxu. Sleep audio needed standardization, so they handed it to a partner system. Death data cleanup was troublesome, so they handed it to a model. In the end, responsibility was outsourced too. And when something happened, everyone could say, "That was done by the partner." Shen Jibai would not let Mingde escape that way. That was why he demanded a section on internal process responsibility. Lin Yao wrote it into the report. The hospital may not abandon its final responsibility for medical consent, psychological support, assistance qualification, and patient data usage on the grounds of outsourced cooperation. Shen Jibai nodded. This line works. Chen Shu also said, the third field team will put this line into the notification. Another important result of the Mingde incident was the medical scenario rule list. 1. Bodily events belong first to medicine, not correction. 2. Medical support may remain, but correction orientation must be stripped. 3. Medical consent and correction consent must be separated. 4. Withdrawing White Tower clauses does not affect necessary medical care. 5. Majority family consent may not replace individual risk disclosure. 6. A human being may not become another person's consent field. 7. Consent may not be fused. 8. Emergency medical exceptions may not be outsourced. 9. Hospitals may not outsource final responsibility. Once those 9 rules were formed, the metal box's faint light became much steadier. A system prompt surfaced. Medical scenario rule draft formed. Obsidian SafePoint real-world adaptation greatly improved. Mingde Hospital node stopped. New module obtained, medical triage protocol. Warning, government system node about to surface. Lin Yao looked at the last sentence and did not speak. The government system. That would be the next larger battlefield. But before leaving Mingde, he still had one thing to do. He went to see Su Ruoqing. Su Ruoqing had woken for a short while. The medication was still in effect. She was exhausted, but her eyes were steadier than before. Xin Wan was sitting beside her. When Su Ruoqing saw Lin Yao come in, she asked quietly, "Did I cause trouble for you again?" Lin Yao shook his head. "You helped us find the emergency relay. You also helped the hospital shut down the White Tower plugin." Su Ruoqing gave a bitter smile. "That makes me sound useful." Lin Yao immediately said, "Being useful does not mean you have to keep being used." Su Ruoqing froze. Her eyes reddened. "I am very afraid now that I will be used again." Qinwan said softly, "Then we will write that into your care note." She wrote in the notes field. The patient has been used multiple times by the White Tower Tower Heart, emergency relay, and qualification modules. All follow-up handling must clearly disclose its purpose. The patient may not be required to bear a role on the grounds of helping others, stabilizing others, or filling a process gap. The patient may refuse to serve as a case, sample, tower heart, or relay. Su Ruoqing looked at those lines and finally truly began to cry. "I can refuse to be a case?" Lin Yao nodded. "You can. Even if your experience helps other people, you can refuse to make it public, refuse to share it, and refuse to keep being a case." This was the follow-up of living people may not be standardized into benchmarks. Many people who were rescued would be expected to share their experiences, encourage others, and become success cases. But if that expectation had no boundary, it would become another form of use. Su Ruoqing nodded. "Then I will not share for now." "That is allowed. I want to sleep first." Shen Jibai happened to walk in, heard that sentence, and said directly, "That is the most reasonable medical order tonight." Qinwan finally smiled a little. The follow-up handling of the Mingde incident continued until dawn. Although the full slot list had not yet been obtained, the mapping table held by Mingde was preserved. Slot 17 blank, slot 13 the middle-aged woman, slot 09 not substitute, and the boy from slot 21 were all listed as discovered correction slots. Among them, blank was formally classified as released. That category was preserved. Released did not mean completed. And it absolutely did not mean failed. It meant a person had been taken back from a field. Anxu sent out the preliminary Mingde notification. Its title was Preliminary Report on the Outsourced Stability System Intervention Incident at Mingde General Hospital. The subtitle was Slot Correction Slots, White Tower Medical Plugins, Anxu Qualification Modules, and the Boundary of Medical Consent. Once that title was sent out, its impact would be greater than the decommissioned mall. Because it was not merely a divine domain synchronization incident. It would affect hospitals, outsourcing, medical ethics, data governance, family consent, and government regulation. Precisely because of that, the government system node surfaced very quickly. At 5 in the morning, Chen Shu received an official notice. The sender was the city government's Joint Office for Social Safety and Digital Governance. The content read: in view of the recent multiple divine domain synchronization-related incidents involving medicine, education, psychological support, data outsourcing, and assistance qualification, the 3rd Field Team, 2nd Research Group, Mingde Hospital, and related partner units are requested to submit materials and participate in an interdepartmental coordination meeting at 10 o'clock today. Meeting topic: City-level integrated response to divine domain synchronization incidents. After Qinwan finished reading, her expression changed slightly. The government system is here. Lin Yao looked at the notice and was not surprised. Luo Wensid said the next time would be in the government system. But the government system was not necessarily under his complete control. More likely, he was preparing to use this interdepartmental coordination meeting to drag the Obsidian safe point, safe naming procedures, withdrawal rights, the slot list, the White Tower, Anxu, and hospital responsibility into one enormous administrative framework. An administrative framework could protect people. It could also flatten people into forms. The next stage of the 3rd season would be a city-level battlefield of identity, data, qualification, and responsibility. Lin Yao tiredly pressed his brow. He had not truly slept for a very long time. But he knew he could not stop. Because once the government system began taking over, if the boundaries were not stated clearly first, all the people Obsidian had rescued along the way might be classified, integrated, numbered, and managed all over again. And Luo Wentz was waiting precisely for that moment. At 10 in the morning, the interdepartmental coordination meeting began on time. The location was not a city government building. It was an online meeting room. That, in itself, was ironic. In the previous round, Luo Wentz had used White Tower cloud rooms in hospital systems to make trouble, and now everyone had no choice but to enter another online space to discuss how to handle it. But this was reality. Government units, hospitals, the research group, field teams, education, social welfare, and digital governance could not all squeeze into Su Family Hall or Mingde Hospital. At the start of the meeting, nearly 30 windows appeared on screen. Chen Shu from the 3rd Field Team. He Chuan and Meng Hong from the 2nd Research Group. Shen Jibai, Lin Chonan, and hospital representatives from Mingde Hospital. Lu Qingxin, the medical ethics consultant. The City Social Affairs Bureau, Education Bureau, Health Bureau, and Digital Governance Office. There were also representatives from several outsourced partner units. Anxu Data and White Tower Psychological Support were present too. Anxu had sent legal counsel. The White Tower had sent an acting executive director. Lin Yao was placed under the Field Incident Workflow Consultant. Chen Shu had insisted on that title. Not abnormal object holder. Not player representative. Not private safe point manager. Incident Workflow Consultant. That prevented him from being defined as an unknown force from the beginning. The meeting chair was Tang Jingheng, director of the Digital Governance Office. His opening was very official. Recent incidents show that divine domain synchronization-related risks have expanded from a single game or research issue into medicine, education, psychological support, data outsourcing, and assistance qualification. The purpose of today's meeting is to establish a city-level integrated response mechanism. That sentence itself was not wrong. But Lin Yao immediately became alert. Integration. If used well, it could prevent everyone from acting separately. If used badly, it would compress all carefully separated boundaries back into one large system. And large systems were Luo Wentz's favorite places to parasitize. Tang Jingheng continued. First, please have the 3rd Field Team explain the decommissioned mall, White Tower learning space, and Mingde Hospital incidents.
Shen compressed the 3 reports into an incident chain.
He did not discuss the mysterious parts. He only presented facts that could be assigned responsibility. The decommissioned mall, fake official correction notices, broadcasts, and human brain relays. The livestream pod, correction language packaged as public welfare lectures. Anxu data, qualification modules, the dead whitelist, withdrawal and temporary name penalties. White Tower learning space, Tower heart candidates, group norms, desensitization of correction fear. Mingde Hospital, emergency relay, supplemental consent, slot correction slots, and MED stable core. In the end, he said only one sentence.
This is not a single point abnormality. It is a chain of outsourced process contamination. Many people in the meeting changed expression. A chain of outsourced process contamination. That description was extremely accurate. And extremely dangerous. Because many city government services relied on outsourcing. Psychological support, social welfare review, data cleaning, customer service systems, education assessment, medical referral, all of them carried the shadow of outsourcing. If this line held, the government system would have to inspect everything. Anxu's legal counsel immediately spoke. We object to the third field team stigmatizing legal outsourced services. The so-called dead whitelist, qualification lock, and other terms have not yet undergone judicial or professional appraisal. The White Tower acting executive also said. The White Tower provides psychological support services. Individual process flaws should not be inflated into malicious manipulation. Jibai laughed coldly. Individual process flaws send people into emergency basement level 2 as slot? The White Tower acting executive's expression changed slightly. Slot is not an official White Tower term. Jibai immediately projected screenshots from Mingde's basement level 2. Slot observation group. Slot 13, residual after failure. Slot 21, pending activation. The White Tower acting executive fell silent. Anxu's legal counsel tried to shift the issue. Whether these data screenshots were obtained through lawful procedures still requires confirmation. Shen was expressionless. Preserved on site by the third field team. Witnessed by Mingde Hospital's responsible medical professional. Risk-reduced summary by the second research group observer. Remote supervision by the medical ethics consultant. Which part do you want to challenge? Anxu's legal counsel closed his mouth. This was the strength of a multi-party responsibility chain. If it had been only Lin Yao, the other side could claim private interference. If it had been only the field team, they could claim the team did not understand medicine. If it had been only the hospital, they could call it an internal process dispute. But now, the field team, hospital, research observation, and ethics consultant had witnessed it together, making the evidence difficult to deny through a single angle. Tang Jinghan looked at Lin Yao. Mr. Lin, please explain the current role of the Obsidian SafePoint. That question sounded neutral, but it was extremely important. If Lin Yao said the Obsidian SafePoint was the core handling agency, the government would certainly take it over. If he said it was only private assistance, it might be pushed to the margins. Lin Yao answered. The Obsidian SafePoint is not an institution replacing the government, hospitals, or field teams. At present, it is only a temporary synchronization placement and routing point. Its function is to catch people whom the existing system cannot yet identify. For example, people using temporary names, people who have withdrawn, family-linked people, people seeking consultation under correction pressure, people contaminated by echoes, and people released from correction slots. It only performs routing, pausing, safe naming, withdrawal confirmation, and risk prompting. It does not make medical diagnoses. It does not perform correction. It does not replace legal consent. Tang Jinghan asked. Are you willing to bring the relevant processes under city-level unified management? The meeting went silent instantly.
This was the core question of the government system node.
Unified management. It sounded reasonable.
But if Obsidian's procedures were brought under unified city management, every temporary name, withdrawal, correction slot, and family-linked person might be built into an official database. Once the database was outsourced in the Anxu style or infiltrated by Luo Wentz, the consequences would be unbearable. Lin Yao did not refuse directly.
He said, it can enter city-level collaboration.
But a single centralized roster must not be built.
Tang Jingheng frowned slightly. Why? Lin Yao answered.
Because a centralized roster will become the next attack target. The dead whitelist, the slot list, and the White Tower candidate list were all results of rosters being misused. The city-level system may establish classification standards, referral processes, and responsibility windows.
But case data must be layered, minimized, and risk-reduced.
The temporary name layer, medical layer, field safety layer, and responsibility investigation layer cannot be mixed into one table.
Lu Qingxin immediately supported him. Medical data also cannot be mixed into the same table with correction risk data. Shen Jibai said, emergency data especially cannot. He Chuan added.
Original dream speech and command language data must be preserved as highly sensitive material and must not enter a general city-level database.
Tang Jingheng fell into thought. The Education Bureau representative asked. Then what should schools do?
The White Tower incident involved students.
If we do not have a roster, how will we know which students need assistance? Lin Yao said. Establish school-side self-protection prompts and referral conditions. Do not establish a divine domain abnormal student blacklist.
The Education Bureau representative's expression changed. That sentence struck directly at the problem.
Schools could easily turn students who needed help into a list.
Once that list existed, it could affect advancement, counseling records, parental pressure, and peer labels.
Lin Yao continued.
Schools may know what to do when a student receives a correction notice, suffers dream anxiety, loses sleep, or is drawn by the White Tower.
But they should not label them as synchronization abnormal.
Temporary names, withdrawal, and instability must not be treated as deductions or risk labels.
The Health Bureau representative asked. What about hospitals? Shen Jibai answered directly. Hospitals establish plug-in review.
Every psychological support, sleep audio, and assistance qualification plugin must first be checked for correction orientation.
But patients do not enter a unified divine domain roster. The Social Affairs Bureau representative asked. What about assistance qualification? Xinhuan projected the Anxu qualification routing plan.
Normal assistance returns to manual or alternative processes.
Processes involving correction waiting, withdrawal penalties, or temporary name penalties are suspended. Processes involving death concealment enter the after-soul register. Processes involving family inheritance waiting receive case-by-case review.
High-risk synchronization recall goes to the field team.
After reading it, the Social Affairs Bureau representative was silent for a long time.
That is a large workload.
Chen Shu said.
The dead whitelist was also a large workload.
But if you do not do it, someone will use the dead to review the living. No one could refute that.
Halfway through the meeting, Tang Jingheng proposed creating a city-level divine domain synchronization risk platform. This was exactly what Lin Yao had feared most.
A platform sounded necessary.
But once a platform was built, data centralization, shared permissions, outsourced maintenance, and cross-departmental use would all appear.
Lin Yao immediately said, a platform can be built.
But it should be a process platform, not a centralized case database.
Tang Jinghong asked. What is the difference? Lin Yao said. A process platform provides 4 things. 1. Self-protection prompts. 2. Initial screening questions. 3. Referral conditions. 4. Responsibility windows. Case data remains with the original responsible unit.
When cross-unit collaboration is needed, only the minimum necessary summary is exchanged. Original dream speech, temporary names, withdrawal details, medical data, and slot release data must not enter the platform core.
The data governance representative nodded. That matches data minimization. Anxu's legal counsel looked very unhappy.
Because if the platform only handled process and did not centralize data, the value of a data service company like Anxu would drop sharply.
It also meant outsourced vendors could no longer hold complete case data. The White Tower acting executive was the same.
Without centralized case data, it would become very difficult to make tower hearts, group norms, or correction fear models.
Tang Jinghong was silent for a moment, then said, "This proposal can be discussed further."
At that moment, the meeting system suddenly lagged.
Every window on the screen flickered briefly. A new gray account appeared inside the meeting room. It had no name. Only a string of identification. GovStable Advisor. Government Stability Advisor. Lin Yao's eyes instantly went cold. This account was not on the meeting invitation list. Tang Jinghong also frowned. Who is this? The gray account did not answer. It directly sent a document into the meeting chat.
Proposal for a city-level divine domain synchronization integration platform.
Item 1. Establish a unified risk roster.
Item 2. Incorporate data from medicine, education, social welfare, field teams, and research groups. Item 3. Use a stability index to evaluate case priority. Item 4. Mark those who refuse correction, withdraw, use temporary names, or are unstable as requiring follow-up.
Item 5. Entrust a third-party data service vendor with maintenance. The meeting room fell silent instantly.
That document was the government system shape Luo once wanted.
A unified roster. A stability index. Withdrawal and temporary name markers. Third-party outsourced maintenance. In other words, an upgraded version of Anxu.
Luo Wentz had not attacked the meeting. He had directly injected the wrong proposal into the government discussion. Like a policy recommendation that looked complete, executable, and able to resolve chaos.
Tang Jinghong's face changed completely. Information team, remove this account. But the account did not disappear immediately. Instead, it sent one sentence into the chat. Distributed data causes inefficiency. Unified stability is the only way to protect the city.
Lin Yao looked at that sentence and knew the government system battle had already begun. It was not a certain basement.
Not a certain hospital room. It was a policy proposal. If this proposal were adopted, Luo Wentz would not need to steal data anymore.
The city would willingly hand its data into the structure he wanted.
Lin Yao stood and said to every window, "This proposal cannot be adopted. Because it rebuilds every error we just dismantled in the form of a government platform." The meeting entered the most critical city-level rule confrontation.
Inside the meeting room, the proposal for a city-level divine domain synchronization integration platform was like a stone thrown into water.
Everyone saw it. Everyone understood the danger. But what was more dangerous was that some people did not object immediately. Because it looked too much like a plan a government would like. Unified risk roster. Cross-departmental data integration. Stability index. Case priority. Third-party data service maintenance. These words looked clean, efficient, and manageable in a slide deck.
If someone had not experienced the dead whitelist, the White Tower Tower Heart, slot correction slots, and the Mingde Hospital node, many people would even think it was reasonable.
The Education Bureau representative spoke first, cautiously. I understand Mr. Lin's concerns. But without a unified roster, how will schools identify high-risk students? The Social Affairs Bureau representative also said, social welfare and medical assistance require qualification determination. If data is dispersed, we may miss people who need help. The Health Bureau representative added, hospitals also need to know quickly whether a patient has divine domain synchronization risk, especially emergency departments. These were all real problems. Lin Yao did not deny them. He knew very clearly that the government system was not the enemy. The real enemy was Luo Wen's packaging a wrong answer as efficiency. Tang Jinghong looked at Lin Yao. Mr. Lin, if we do not build any unified roster at all, how do you prevent each unit from acting on its own? Lin Yao did not rush to answer. He first dismantled the proposal Luo Wen had sent, line by line. Item 1. Establish a unified risk roster.
Item 2. Incorporate data from medicine, education, social welfare, field teams, and research groups. Item 3. Use a stability index to evaluate case priority. Item 4. Mark those who refuse correction, withdraw, use temporary names, or are unstable as requiring follow-up.
Item 5. Entrust a third-party data service vendor with maintenance.
He looked at the meeting screen.
On the surface, these 5 items improve efficiency.
But every item corresponds to a risk we have just dismantled.
A unified roster will become a new whitelist.
Cross-domain data integration will turn medical, educational, social welfare, and field safety risks into a personal label.
A stability index will compress unstable people into low scores.
Marking refusal of correction, withdrawal, and temporary names will turn help-seeking behavior into a basis for punishment.
Third-party maintenance is the Anxu model rebuilt.
Anxu's legal counsel looked ugly.
Lin Yao did not look at him. He continued. What truly needs to be unified is not the roster. It is the handling principles. Tang Jinghong frowned slightly. Be specific. Lin Yao opened a blank page. The title he wrote was City-Level Divine Domain Synchronization Response, Build a Unified Protocol, Not a Unified Roster.
Layer 1, Public Self-Protection Prompts.
Layer 2, Initial Screening Questions for each scenario. Layer 3, Routing Conditions for Responsible Units. Layer 4, Minimum Necessary Summary Exchange. Layer 5, Preservation and Accountability for Highly Sensitive Data. He said,
the city can unify prompts.
Unify questions.
Unify what situation should go to schools, what situation should go to hospitals, what situation should go to the field team, and what situation should go to the safe point.
But do not collect every case into one platform. The platform stores processes, not whole people.
That sentence made the meeting room quiet for a moment.
The platform stores processes, not whole people. Tang Jinghong repeated it quietly. A process platform, not a case platform. Lin Yao nodded. Yes. For example, the school site only needs to know what low stimulation questions to ask when a student shows divine domain dream anxiety. It does not need to know the student's complete hospital medical record.
The hospital site only needs to know that the patient may be at risk from correction language stimulation. It does not need to know the student's full school counseling record. The social welfare site only needs to know that a certain assistance qualification must not be automatically penalized because of withdrawal or a temporary name. It does not need to know what the case heard in a dream. The field site only intervenes in situations such as high-risk military order spillover, correction slots, and missing synchronizers. It does not need to hold a list of every low-risk anxious person. The data governance representative nodded clearly. This matches purpose limitation and data minimization. The Education Bureau representative still had concerns. If a school encounters a student who says they are using a temporary name, should it be recorded? Lin Yao answered. It can be recorded in school counseling records as a current naming need. But it may not be uploaded as a city-level abnormality tag. It may not serve as a negative basis for advancement, discipline, awards, or psychological grading. And third parties must not use temporary name records to train stability models. The Health Bureau representative asked. What if a hospital encounters a slot correction slot? Shen Jibai answered directly. The hospital handles the body and safety first. The synchronization risk summary goes to the field team and SafePoint. But slot release data cannot enter ordinary medical summaries and be passed around. Lu Qingxin added. A highly sensitive note can be established. It can remind medical staff not to require the patient to consent for others and not to use white tower procedures. But it does not disclose all slot details. The Social Affairs Bureau representative asked. How do assistance qualifications avoid missing people? Xin Wan said. The assistance side does not need to know every divine domain risk. It only needs to add several prohibitions. Do not subtract points because of withdrawal records. Do not subtract points because of temporary names. Do not use death-concealed samples. Do not treat correction completion as an assistance priority condition. When suspected qualification coercion appears, transfer to manual review. The Social Affairs Bureau representative fell silent. This was more troublesome than a unified roster. But it was safer. Tang Jinghong looked at the data governance representative. Is this technically feasible? The data governance representative said. Feasible. But each unit must preserve its own original data and bear its own responsibility. It cannot all be thrown onto the platform. Tang Jinghong looked toward the outsourced partner units. Anxu's legal counsel immediately said. This will greatly reduce system efficiency. It will also raise the cost of cross-unit collaboration. Lin Yao looked at him. Yes. But it will also prevent you from using one model to compress everyone into a stability index. Anxu's legal counsel looked very ugly. The White Tower acting executive said. Without centralized data, psychological support cannot form effective continuity of care. Shen Jibai said coldly. Continuity of care is not continuous control. Patients can choose to change doctors, change institutions, and withdraw from outsourced services. The problem is that you describe continuity as non-exit. Lu Qingxin also said. The continuity of psychological support cannot come at the price of a case being unable to withdraw. The White Tower acting executive stopped speaking. At that moment, the Gray account, GovStable advisor, sent another sentence. A process platform lacks enforcement power. High-risk cases will be lost. A stability index can protect public safety. Tang Jinghong's face became even darker. Information team, you still have not removed it? The information team reported. This account is not a normal external login. It appears to be connected to the meeting document collaboration plugin. Again, an extension. Lin Yao gave a cold laugh. Luo Wentz really likes plugins. He Chuan immediately investigated the source of the meeting system plugin. The result came quickly. The meeting document collaboration plugin was provided by a city government partner vendor. The vendor was not Anxu.
But inside the technical support list, there were former Anxu data employees. Tang Jingheng's face went completely black.
The government system had already been touched.
Not the core household registration or social welfare system.
But at least the meeting collaboration plugin had been implanted with wrong proposal delivery. This was Luo Wence's method this time.
He did not necessarily control the government directly.
But he could push reasonable-looking proposals through plugins, slides, and collaborative documents onto the decision table.
Then people would discuss them themselves. Adopt them themselves. Lin Yao looked at the gray account and added another principle. Public safety may not be based on a non-exitable stability index.
High-risk management must have manual review, appeal, withdrawal, and data correction channels. No stability score may be generated by a third-party outsourced black box.
The data governance representative immediately said, "These 3 items should be included in the platform design principles." Tang Jingheng nodded. "Record them." The gray account sent one final sentence. "You choose inefficiency."
Lin Yao looked at that sentence and said calmly, "We choose not to turn people into scores."
The next second, the information team finally cut off the collaboration plugin. The gray account disappeared. But the document it left behind did not disappear. Tang Jingheng ordered it preserved as evidence of an attack.
This was the first turning point of the government system. The wrong proposal had not been adopted. But it had already proven that Luo Wentz did not need to control the entire government system. As long as he could control the entrance for policy documents, it would be dangerous enough. At the end of the meeting, Tang Jingheng made a preliminary decision.
1. Suspend Anxu and the White Tower from participating in city-level divine domain synchronization-related data processing. 2. Establish a city-level process platform, but do not establish a centralized case roster. 3. Establish security review for outsourced plugins.
For medicine, education, social welfare, field teams, and research groups each establish a minimum summary exchange format. 5. Original dream speech, slot data, temporary names, withdrawal details, and medical records may not enter the platform core. 6. Establish a temporary city-level responsibility group, with participation from the third field team, medical ethics, data governance, and the SafePoint workflow consultant. This was not final victory. But at least, the unified roster had not been created. Lin Yao leaned back in his chair and finally felt a wave of exhaustion rise. But just as the meeting was about to end, Tang Jingheng received an urgent message. After reading it, his expression changed. Just now, the social welfare assistance systems in 3 districts automatically sent supplemental document notices. Qin Wan asked, "What does it say?" Tang Jingheng projected the notice. Because city-level divine domain synchronization risk review has been initiated, assistance recipients are requested to supplement stability confirmation materials within 24 hours.
Failure to do so may affect follow-up qualification.
The meeting room fell dead silent again. The wrong proposal had not been adopted. But Luo Wentz had already planted supplemental document notices in the social welfare assistance system. The government system battle entered its second stage. Not a policy meeting. Official notices sent to citizens.